very good afternoon to all of you. Today we have been endowed with the opportunity to hear from Mr. Rajeev Vaid. Mr. Rajeev is the COO Boston Analytics. Boston Analytics is a strategy consulting firm which serves Fortune 1000 clients seeking powerful insights from data to drive their strategic decisions about growth, and the co-founder of Kognetics, an artificial intelligence-based application that transforms financial research and analysis. Mr. Rajiv has held senior executive positions in corporate development and was with IBM as Vice President for M&A in Asia Pacific, where he was responsible for analytics acquisition. He was involved in over US 10 billion in M&A transaction. Mr. Rajiv also led the market entry strategy for Samsung, Sara Lee, and Harley Davidson into India. He has also worked with notable organizations like Coca-Cola and Esher. Mr. Rajiv holds an MBA from Aston University, UK, and is a graduate in electrical engineering from IIT Roorkee. Sir, on behalf of Jaipuria Group of Educational Institution and Jaipuria Institute of Management, I, Sanandi Sachdeva, welcome you on this virtual mode. A very warm welcome, sir. Thank you for being with us for the day.
Thank you so much indeed, Sanandi. Really appreciate the introduction.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now request Mr. Mohammed Salman, Head CRC, Jaipuria Group of Educational Institution, to welcome Mr. Rajeev Vaid. Sir, over to you.
Sure, it's a pleasure having Rajiv on board, and we are truly looking forward to his. Rajiv is that we would like to see a lot of our students heading as well, organizations which very strongly work on data and technology and produce results for their customers. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Rajiv to deliver his or to share his thoughts with us. This will cover his life's journey and, a lot of advice that we would have for all of our students who've signed in. I noticed there's more than 150 of them on this session right now, plus some of our faculty members like Timira ma'am and Sanandi, of course. And we truly look forward to your session, Rajiv. Over to you.
Thanks, Salman. It's been a while, my friend, so thanks. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Yes.
Okay. So number one, thank you so much for the opportunity. What I thought I would do is share some thoughts, over the last 30 years that I've been fortunate enough to be working in the business world in India and outside. So I thought I'll share some of my sort of early stage thoughts, okay? So the way I've organized my sort of discussion today is there are some lessons I learned during my 30 years worth of journey. And then I'll talk a little bit more to you about what's my foremost passion, which is technology and specifically artificial intelligence. And the way I see where the world is headed and why this competence is very, very important for all of us. It doesn't matter what we do. And then I'll round it off by what does it mean for you, all right? And as you step out of business schools and you're getting started on your full-time jobs, what does it mean for you? So what would be some of my advice to you? Okay? And then we can have a wee bit of a Q&A after that, and hopefully I'm able to address. And if there are any questions that you would want to do afterwards, you can always email me and I can address them. Okay? So far so good? So,
yes, sir, absolutely.
So, before I started what I do today, this was, I'd worked for about 20 years with some very fine companies around the world. I started my career with British Oxygen Company, and I worked with Esher, and I worked with GE, and I worked with IBM. And after 20 years, I started to think about what should I be doing next? Because 20 years is actually a very interesting milestone for one to consider. Whether do you keep going as it is, or do you do a path change here, right? So I thought it's a good crossroad discussion for me. So I had this discussion with myself, and actually I had two options, right? I had, I'd been successful enough that I could go buy myself a red Ferrari and play golf pretty much day in, day out. I could have done that. Or I could do something very different. I've always wanted to have my own company, do a startup. And I thought perhaps 20 years later, this might be not a bad idea to go look at starting a company. So the first thing I did was actually make this decision that I wanted to go do a startup. And what I liked about the decision was not that, it wasn't, the other one was not very attractive. It's just that this got me out of my comfort zone. I would have been doing exactly what I was doing for 20 years. I would have lived a very comfortable life. But that wasn't really palatable, that wasn't really very attractive. So I thought, hey, why don't we do some bungee jumping here? Why don't we go do a startup? And I started to look around and I started to discuss this with my fellow colleagues. And I found that there were many sort of 20 plus years veterans who thought it's not a bad idea to go do a startup. So I started with a group of about 5 people and said, let's go do a company. And I wanted to go do a company in two domains that I've always loved. One is the domain of strategy. The second is the domain of analytics, and specifically artificial intelligence-based analytics. So about 8 years back, I went and bought a strategy consulting company from existing founders. And I had a 5-man sort of founding team with me, all senior executives from IBM, GE, American Express, and what have you. And we thought, let's go get going on a consulting company. And more importantly, let's not just do consulting in the traditional sense, but let's do consulting more analytics oriented, more machine oriented, more asset driven, not more professional services driven, right? So we continue to build out Boston Analytics, but we also sort of started to make an investment in artificial intelligence. And I'm talking about 2015, 16, when AI was sort of really rearing its head. And we decided to go build these 2 companies. And we were having a boatload of fun. And what I realized was that to go start a company and build a company, you have to unlearn many bad things that large corporations teach you. So you have to really be, the CEO as well as the janitor of your company at the same time. They weren't people who were out there able to help you do whatever you wanted to get done. So you had to go do a lot of it yourself. So anyway, long story short, we ended up with a fantastic management team of 5 senior executives, a group of about 100 plus very talented consultants from IITs and IIMs and other B schools around the world. And we started to go build out technology. And I thought that was, the biggest sort of kick I've ever had in my life as I built this company up. And it sort of paled in significance with the 20 years I'd worked with large companies. Not that those 20 years were not great, they were wonderful. But I think this entire thrill of doing bungee jumping was just fantastic. And I thought, hey, should have done this earlier. But anyways, here and now, so let's go ahead and do this. And what that got me to was my sort of 3 fundamental sort of learnings here that I want to share with you folks. And this is very, the first one is very simple. We've all heard this, but as I reflect even now, having worked for 30 years, it still remains very poignant in my mind that does one have a goal? Do you as an individual, do you as a professional have a goal? And before I could answer this question, do I have a goal or not, I wanted to research what does this word actually mean? And I worked and I sort of searched long and hard about this. And I realized that this goal is actually beautifully defined by a person called Earl Nightingale. He was one of the foremost radio speakers and writers in the US. If you ever get an opportunity, go YouTube him up and you'll see Earl Nightingale. And he defined this as progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And that, sort of got me thinking as to what does this actually really mean? Progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Now, a homemaker might have an ideal of being the best homemaker. The bricklayer might have the goal of being the best bricklayer. A developer might have the goal of being the best developer. A consultant might have a similar goal. But I think the ideation here is the progressive realization. You're steadily and steadfastly making progress towards that worthy ideal. And that worthy ideal must fill you up with the warm fuzzy. It must fill you up with a very positive self-worth. It must fill you up with compassion and love for all that you're working with and working whom with, right? So, that's really sort of the fundamental realization. And let me sort of be very upfront here. I didn't understand this when I started 20, 30 years back, okay? But as you go through some trials and tribulations, and as you go through phase changes in your life, you start seeking the fundamental. And that's when you start really understanding that it's very important. Now, anecdotally, if you ask everybody, do you have a goal? They will all say yes. But statistically, at least 7 to 8 out of 10 have a goal, but it's really not one. And it really doesn't get you where you want to go. And that's sort of statistically proven out as to when you start off in your careers, 2 out of 10 really are ultra successful and 8 out of 10 are not. So it's very important that I thought, this should be my first sort of impassioned learning that I share with you, that you must have a worthy goal that you set out for yourselves. Okay. The second one is really about keeping yourself current. You have to reinvent yourself. The fun part is you are in an environment today where there is actually innovation happening so fast that if you were to sort of just stay very focused on just following AI on Twitter, you will learn a lot. Or if you were to spend 30 minutes on a podcast every day, you will learn a lot, right? So I think the second big thing is keep yourself current. You're going to reinvent yourself all the time. And this is sort of all driven by that individual, by you. It isn't sort of an external stimulus. It requires each one of us to continue to make super investments in ourselves, because hey, we are the best asset we got, right? So we might as well continue to make investments in that asset and continue to bolster that, right? And the third thing, which is what I learned in the last 8 years as I started my entrepreneurial journey, and sort of it almost is like very antithetical to when I started with the corporate world. And in the corporate world, just to give you an anecdote, I was running a profit and loss account for a large company. And for 7 years, I was exceeding my financial numbers. But on the 8th year, I did not exceed my financial numbers. And therefore, every year you were either deemed a success or a failure. And it didn't matter if you had been successful 7 years. But on the 8th year, if you didn't make your targets, you failed, plain and simple. And that's what the performance processes sort of acknowledge you. Right? So it's only the elegance of failing and not giving up is what I learned when I did my entrepreneurial journey. And today I advocate to almost all of our people that don't take direction, do your thing, and if it doesn't matter, if it doesn't work out, we'll redo it again. And we'll redo it again until we get it there. And I think I've just sort of made a very strong investment in this principle as I run the rest of my professional career, which is encourage my people to just do it. Don't worry about the consequence, you know? So that's really the three stories that I thought I'd share with you. Now, changing track to artificial intelligence. And hope you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes, sir, we can see.
You know, we've all sort of very privy to lots of technology disruption happening around us, right? We all know about AI, IoT, or Internet of Things, or the physical internet. We all know about new business models like everything as a service, cloud computing, big data analytics, mobility, and social media, right? All of this we're very familiar with. But let me just try and sort of give a sense to where is this all headed. And what does it mean for us as we enter enterprise or business enterprise very shortly, right? The first and the foremost piece that is happening with this technology is it's creating so much data that you just don't know what to do with it. For a long period of time, decisions have been made on limited data. But what do you do when the data around you is being created at a frenzy, almost like 15 petabytes are being generated every day? You know, if that is what is being generated around a business enterprise, and 80% of the data is unstructured, I mean, how do you use that data? And you know, there was a very interesting anecdote again I got that by 2020, by this year, we will have almost 3,000 exabytes, which is 3 times the data, the distance from Sun to Pluto and back, right? So that's a heck of a lot of data. And business enterprises around the world, unequivocally, without an exception, are only handling a small portion of that data. And that data, can you believe it? Such a limited, incipient use of data analytics to make decision making, especially when the issues that you're contending with today and tomorrow are bigger. They're harder to solve. Climate change, urban mobility, aging, right? I mean, these are big problems to solve. And these are harder problems to solve. So if you don't really tap into the data and use your imagination, it's going to be very difficult for tangible solutions to come out, especially when timelines are compressed. And we all see this, right? In this current pandemic, from T equals to 0 on January 1 of 2020, the race is on for the cure for the disease. And therefore the timeline, such situations will recur. You know, this is what many foremost speakers have said, this is the biggest threat to our world. And we'll have such situations, but we'll also be compressed for time to respond to those. And these are honestly, do or die moments. And enterprises are going to need to react and act if they want to survive. No longer the S&P, the Standard & Poor 500, comprises of companies that were about 100 years back. A lot of companies in that index were not even around 15, 20 years back, right? So, this is what's happening. And this is sort of scary as well as very interesting at the same time. So what this means is, the singular, in my opinion at least, the singular most important investment one needs to go make is to understand artificial intelligence. And just to be technical about this, there are 2 kinds, strong and soft artificial intelligence. And strong is really about when machines can actually mimic human behavior. I'm talking about soft artificial intelligence, which is really to do with NLP or natural language processing, semantic analytics, machine learning, robotics, computer vision, speech recognition, or so on and so forth, right? These are technologies which are really disruptive. But if you follow Elon Musk on Twitter, you will see the kind of things that he is investing in, and similar people like him, what they're doing on soft artificial intelligence. Right? Countries are making big-time investments in soft AI. China is making huge investments in artificial intelligence. There are at least 10,000 companies out there that are being financed by the government. So it's not a trivial arena that we're playing with. This is really the way to go. And what that entails really is this. Think about this now. Whilst in its incipiency, the applications are still around us and they're growing. You currently use AI to manage your personal finances, or at least your parents do. There are trading systems that are using AI. Loans are being underwritten, insurance is being underwritten, virtual assistants, customer support. A lot of this is being done through artificial intelligence. But check this out, right? Real-time fraud and risk management. That is being done. Real-time analysis of fraud risk has been done at speeds which are mind-boggling. At 40 to 60 milliseconds is the decision-making, or at least the analytical processing time for risk management algorithms. Especially when it takes, for a helicopter blade to rotate, it takes 185 milliseconds. If you want to go do a Google search, it takes you 200 milliseconds. If you want to blink your eye, it takes you 300 milliseconds. With that speed, if you can actually have AI work at business processing at 40 to 60 milliseconds, isn't that amazing? Isn't that really fantastic as to where this world's headed to and what it means for all of us, and how exciting it is that we now have the opportunity, and you also have the toolware to solve such problems. And the tools are not sort of going away that fast, right? A breakneck frenzy, new and new tools are being researched and developed by labs, by research organizations, in the government, in the private sector. So lots and lots of things are sort of being created. New and new tools are coming out. So now what we have is, we have big problems on one end, hard problems on one end, and we got some very contemporary tools and technologies on the other end. So then what does it mean? It means the best that a human was ever made for, which is to pick large problems, to be fully equipped with this tech stack, and then sort of address it and solve the problem, right? Isn't that an exciting opportunity to be in? And that's where you stand today, right? At the cusp, as you consider your imminent passing out from your management institute. Just extending this a little further, this logic a little further. So we talked about the pandemic problem, but there are many problems, What if, and this is what is going to be sort of the mantra in my mind, right? What if is really the imagination that we are all needed to be asked for to go do. What if insurance claim data could make people healthier and reduce their costs? Right now, the cost continues to increase and the diagnostic time continues to remain where it is. But what if the world could see this? What if a medicine speed to market saved a life or 1 million lives? And this is so poignant in this environment we are in today, right? We're now running on our almost 10th month of research and development, right? And whilst it is still notable in terms of the progress that the world's made, but tomorrow's problems might not give us that amount of time. So what if we could actually have technology help us develop the right antidote faster? What if we could actually really, truly predict and forecast the weather? And you've all seen news items about the fires in California and the fires in Australia, right? And obviously this is very poignant because it actually costs loss to life and property. And similarly, what if you could really trace your food straight from the farm to the fork? And you didn't have to worry about the opaqueness of how that goes through from the farm to how it ends up on your dining table, right? So what it means is, as you folks think about entering your career, your companies that you will be working with will be going through serious disruption and innovation anyways. Their business models will be changing. Today you sold air filters, tomorrow you will sell air quality, right? Today you sold jet engines, tomorrow you will sell air uptime of an aircraft. So business models are changing dramatically. And then all business functions like supply chain, sales and marketing, HR, strategy, mergers and acquisitions, and even your products and services are going to go through serious changes over the next few days, months, weeks, quarters, and years, right? And every organization is going to have to contend with as to what do they do here. If they do not, it is going to be a fairly difficult show for an enterprise to go on. And today it's funny, I mean, we work with quite a few firms around the world. And one thing that you find is organizations, large organizations especially, are not that sophisticated in terms of being able to incorporate such toolware and such thinking in the decision making. And where does this problem really sort of get addressed? It gets addressed by bright young folks like you who come with this competency set. And what is this competency set? So in my mind, the competency set comprises of actually three major parts. The first is, do you understand technology? Do you understand what is IoT or cloud or AI or the big data? So you must not just understand technology, you must also be able to code. Today in my mind, this is the biggest sort of competency. And I'm learning coding myself so that I could work with my team side by side, coding in Python and coding in RStudio and whatever, right? So it's very important that you must get turned on by being part of sort of sessions which are coding sessions. So that is one, The second is really about the skill set you ought to have. I think your skill set should comprise of three distinctive competencies. One is obviously you must understand the business because that's what you're specializing in, which is you'll make a choice of working in an industry, be it financial services or retail or airlines or wherever, or you would specialize in a business function, sales, marketing, HR, R&D, manufacturing, whatever. So that is one skill set that you are sort of being technically trained for, and therefore you've been groomed for that. You've also been groomed for data science because big data analytics is integral to everything that we do today. But go beyond that, really try and, like I said, learn to code, really be a master in data science. You should be able to sort of see how do you create neural network models? How do you really create multiple regression models? So you should be able to get there. And finally, you must understand the entire paradigm of data or application engineering, how applications are built, because we are in a world where our consumption models are either SaaS, software as a service, or as APIs, web APIs, right? So everything that we're doing is moving more and more towards such consumption models. So therefore, we must be able to understand this data and application engineering view. And finally, be collaborative. You're not going to be able to solve all your problems by yourselves. So you're going to have to collaborate with everybody who's going to be involved in problem solving, right? A few more thoughts. So what are the prospects in this pandemic? Seen business models that have been badly hit, and I've also seen business models which are part of the new normal. The new normal business models are doing well. Established companies are going through their cycles, so they will reinvent themselves and come through. But I find the entrepreneurial ecosystem everywhere, be it US, be it China, be it Israel, be it India, being very, very vibrant. So, if you get an opportunity to be part of that entrepreneurial ecosystem, I would say go for it. Because you're going to learn a lot, you will make a huge impact, You will not have to sort of go through a large organizational sort of issue set. And if you have your own business idea, if you think you can change the world, and if you think you have a great idea, I would say go for it. Set your own company up and go for it, because I don't think there's any impediment. And finally, to round it off, I think every day as you spend either preparing to enter the business world, just make sure that you're spending enough time on yourself, that you're enhancing your awareness, you're following developments in technologies, you're looking at Twitter, you're reading blogs, you're doing self-study, you're going through podcasts, there are many out there, you're enrolling on courses. And finally, when you do, and this would be sort of my humble request, when you do start your work with the company of your choice, engage with all of your heart, because don't think of what you will do as a job. Connect with your company at an emotional level. See it as your own company. And then you will see that you will not have to worry about the outcomes. You will not have to worry about success and failures, because you would be a very key player in the transformation journey of every company. And the fun piece is, it doesn't matter you're a big bank or you're a small fintech company. It doesn't matter what you are as a company. If you have what it takes, even if you're 1 year's of worth experience or 5 years or 15 years, it doesn't matter. It's the same level playing field today. So for me, this would be my sort of rounding of thought as you imminently think about entering into the work world. That's what really I wanted to share with you, team, on technology and what's in it for you, really. Salman?
Wonderful, Rajiv. I think you've given a, perfect sort of, you've talked to them on what they need to do to develop themselves. You've spoken about the changes that have come about in the workplace, because of which every one of us, be it our students or our faculty, all of us need to reinvent ourselves, as you very rightly put it. And you've laid out the criticality of data science and technology in practically everything that we do in the business world today, which is, you spoke about each of the normal business functions and how each of those will get enriched if, our understanding of data and our understanding of how data is to be analyzed and applied thereafter changes. So this is wonderful. We'll now invite Sanandi. I think we should invite questions from the students. So I noticed I've just come across one question.
Yes, sir.
So there are a couple of them which have already come in, Rajiv.
Sure.
Priyanka wants to know,
I can.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sir, sorry to interrupt. Actually, it was some signal disconnectivity. Did not know that you're speaking. Okay. So I can tell Priyanka to unmute and ask the question herself, or
she's typed her question, so we can read it out.
Okay, she's put it on the chat.
Yeah, so she's asking Rajiv, can a non-technical person pursuing MBA opt for business analytics as a career destination? So this is a concern that a lot of our students have. They do not have a technology background. So what are your thoughts? Can a person who's quote unquote non-technical, though I don't really believe in that term anymore, nobody is non-technical in the current world, the way I look at it. But what are your thoughts? Can such a person, be a success in functions like business analytics?
Actually, my thought is, if you don't have a technical background, then you actually have a tremendous advantage than a disadvantage, because there are two disciplines, right? There's a technical discipline which teaches you to think logically, and then there's a creative discipline which teaches you to think creatively. And that's what is required. So I think if you don't have a technical background, I would see this as a huge advantage. And I would actually go sort of do the right courses and try and build a career in business analytics. Interestingly, companies are no longer sort of classifying themselves as an industrial company or a financial company. They're trying to call themselves as an analytics company. So, every job, in my opinion, or every role, in my opinion, is going to be an analytics role, or should be an analytics role. So, you might as well beat the trend here and actually lead it by building a career in business analytics. Hope that answers.
Sure. The next question also seems to be related to the first. So Monal is asking, what are some of the specific career options available for freshers, which means, fresh graduates out of an MBA program in the business analytics field? So where do you feel that, what could be a starting point for them?
Yeah. So, in business analytics, you don't have to go jump right into sort of building the right algorithms upfront, right? There are lots of things you do. And funnily, I've been through all of this by myself. So there is lots of content curation you do. There's lots of data deduplication. There's lots of data management that you tend to do early stage. And when it comes to the entrepreneurial world, you won't believe it. The founding team ends up doing this. So I spend my weekends, doing data management over hundreds and thousands of news items, and so does my chief product officer. Right? So I think the best thing is, if you really want to go build a career in data analytics, pick a startup. Pick a company that is really sort of getting started, and you'll get started in the ground floor, and then you'll have all of the things you need to go do. As you go do data management, then you'll be asked to go do data duplication, then you'll be asked to go do data aggregation, then you will say, okay, can you now check the algorithm logic? And slowly, I guarantee you, in 6 months, you'll be actually writing algorithms in R or Python. So,
absolutely. Lovely. So there are two questions which I'll combine. They are essentially asking about specific career options in areas like supply chain management, HR, and marketing. And I'm assuming this is with respect to or with reference to data science and analytics. So where you feel that good knowledge of data science and analytics would fit into areas like supply chain management, HR, and marketing?
Actually, all three are equally important. All three have pretty much a very high penetration of data sciences and analytics, or have a need, or have a propensity. So all three disciplines that you just enunciated are prime time for a data analytics opportunity.
Okay. Excellent. There is a question on, so Tanya has asked, and she's made a very, a statement which I hear a lot of, which is that automation, bots, AI, etc., are they really required in a country like ours, where unemployment could become an issue if machines or technology replace humans? So, what are your thoughts on that, Rajiv?
Okay, I think very strong. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us in India. That the opportunity to automate a lot of processes for business world is here and now, and it's only going to increase. And the business world is not just comprising about companies in India, right? So out of the public companies, there are 65,000 public companies, and we only have a handful of them in India. And then there is a large private sector ecosystem outside. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity for India to actually take a pole position in automation and related technologies, like India did 20 years back in IT services. So what we did on services, and then what we followed it up with business process services, the third phase is really about Industry 4.0 and such technologies. So I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us in India. So it's not India for the sake of India consumption, it's India sourced, India developed for the world to consume. So, we should be building a 10 times bigger industry than what we did on technology and BPO using this technology.
Excellent, Rajiv. This is actually the same question which used to be asked so frequently. I know our audience here, most of it would not be able to go back to that time, but in the 80s when banking was introducing computerization in the country in a big way, this used to be a huge concern. Is this going to take away jobs? The answer is it has not taken away jobs. It's just made the quality of those jobs better. It has ensured that different skills are acquired by people, skills which are required for the new world. So it's really not about replacing people, it's about enhancing what people do.
Yes.
So I think you put that very nicely. So Sanandi, do we have time for some more questions?
So we can take 1 to 2 questions. I think students have put their questions in the chat box.
Right.
Shalu,
So,
yeah.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
So Shalu, I think she's an aspiring MBA student, first year student. So she's asking the difference between marketing analytics and business analytics. So
Analytics as you apply it to the discipline of marketing is sort of normally called marketing analytics. Analytics as you apply it to multiple functions. It could be finance, it could be HR, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be IT, is business analytics. It's just that the nomenclature changes, but the fundamental thing is really about two. One is technology and tools. The other is about the domain in which that is being deployed. And I think that's what you need to be particular about as to where you want to specialize. Obviously, you'll become a specialist in the toolware, but then you could say that I want to be more supply chain, more marketing, more finance orientated. And that's what you'll need to look at, in your curriculum or even beyond your curriculum, so build your specialization. But it's a difference. I think these are semantic differences than anything else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Priyanka is also asking, she's wanting to know that what vital role does data play in the field of HR and what is its impact? What is the impact of data analytics in the field of HR? So probably she has a major, so she is really worried about this question.
No, so data analytics in HR is a tremendous potential area. What if I told you that there are applications of analytics that you could actually sort of make predictions on which person will leave an organization and why? Or, out of 250 or 2,500 people who responded to a job, what are the top 10 percentile of people best equipped to do that role, right? So, or what if, you were going through an interview and you were being videographed and the prediction could be made whether you're a good fit for the company or not. All of these are analytical applications. All of these are in HR, okay? So right through the life cycle of a person from the time they enter and the processes to do that to the time they will potentially exit, you can actually make those predictions. And therefore, analytics in HR is actually becoming a huge deal.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think Niyati, she doesn't have a very technical questions, but she wants to know that what are the basic things one has to keep in mind to become a successful entrepreneur in Indian economy?
Okay, fantastic. The first and this is what I learned the hard way. Okay, don't ever try to do things by yourself. You must have a team that you can partner with. The team must complement you. Okay, there are no superstars when it becomes an entrepreneurial setup. There are only superstar teams. So that's the only facet. So the only thing you need to know, you might not be technically the most proficient, but if you have the best collaborative mindset that you can make and help people trust and empathize with each other in work, it is underwritten that you'll be successful. I would just say that. It's singularly down to one attribute. Okay?
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, but probably the ones who have just been starting, they really don't know how to acquire that team. Neither they have so much resources and nor they have that kind of experience to have a team with them. So what are the steps that they require to follow?
So for them, I mean, obviously the first thing is you must have a great idea. That is one. And the second is, which is what I go back to my point about having a goal, that worthwhile ideal. Right? So you must have that defined very clearly. And you must say that this is a unique problem. It has not been addressed, and therefore that is one. If it is a unique idea, then half the things are done, because you have to be very particular that you're not just trying to plagiarize, you're not trying to copy, you're not trying to just do what somebody else did. For every Uber, there have been multiple other sort of ride-sharing applications, right? So I think that if you have what it takes to come up with that idea, that's what I would focus on as the foremost. If you have a great idea, then you will sort of disseminate that idea with a bunch of people, your friends and your family, and then you'll attract the right people to work with.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Excellent.
So, sir, I also wanted to ask that the way the data is growing is very, very scary. Almost everything is being monitored. Every person is being monitored. The way we are using social media, every step of ours is monitored. So, isn't it that data is having more harm as compared to the pros? This is what I wanted to ask.
Not really. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that's sort of the function of entropy, right? Which is what we learned in chemistry. That the universe is growing, creativity is growing. So the outcome of that creativity, as we manifest itself in codified attributes, is data, right? It's just a symptom. It's just not a symptom. It's an outcome of the collective ideation of humankind. That because it is developing so fast, it's innovating so fast, it is creating outputs that is manifesting itself as data. Okay. I mean, millions of years back, there was not much data, right? But today there is. Why? Because we have progressed as species, and will continue to go do so. So data is bound to increase. It's like the universe is bound to grow. You can't sort of be fearful of that. All you have to do is take the other position, which is how do you tap into it?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. Salman, sir, would you like to take forward?
Sure. So I think we have pretty much run through our questions as well. I think the ones that are listed, the other ones listed here have been answered. I was just going through them during the course of your session. So Rajiv, on behalf of the Jaipuria group and both of our institutions, we wish to thank you very profoundly for an excellent session. I'm sure all of our students and our faculty who participated have benefited out of it. It will be wonderful to remain in touch with you for all of us as a group of institutions, and I'm truly looking forward to that in the days and weeks ahead. So if some of our students want to just ask you something separately as well, we'll allow them to do that and share that query with you and seek your response to that. So
absolutely, Salman. No worries
sure,
at all.
Sure. Wonderful being with you. Thank you so much once again.